Hello.
Hello, Mike. Hi.
Yes, that's
Hi.
me.
Hello.
Can you
That's us.
see me?
Yes.
You
Very
can see
well.
me, you can hear me?
Can you see us as well?
I can see you, yeah, I can hear you, I can see you. If it sounds weird, I'll put on some headphones or something, but how does it sound?
I can hear you. Can you say something again? People are laughing, that's right.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, wonderful. Yes?
Okay, great.
All right.
That's,
Here we are.
maybe I'll grab these headphones anyway, just in case it helps, but.
It's good. Good. That's excellent. For us, it's good.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. All right, let's talk.
Let me just have a look at the screen. Okay, they see you as well. There you are. Right. Okay. I just well, actually, the first question would be, how are you? Because you had such events going on. I mean, you must be somewhere between horror and happiness in a way, because you had
yeah, it's
Sandy, Obama, and everything else.
Yeah, Sandy Obama. The hard work begins now, basically, because there's the continued cleanup from the hurricane, and then there is the continued cleanup that needs to be done about trying to actually put pressure on the Obama administration to make the changes that we really need to see to deal with the causes of climate change instead of just the symptoms, you know. So that's really our challenge right now, is to not lose steam. You know, just because the election is over, it doesn't mean that we can stop.
But you are relieved, I guess, huh? Because it turned out like this.
Huge feelings of relief.
Yes.
Because it basically, very few people that I know worked hard on this campaign. You know, whereas the last time around, 4 years ago, everyone was all out working on it, giving money, doing everything they could. And this time, for one thing, it seemed like it would be very hard to beat Obama. But secondly, it seemed like the candidate he was running against was so kind of pathetic and rich and ugly and awful that that they could win. So everybody sort of sat back, and then I had a collective experience with a lot of friends where we got really worried the past couple weeks, and yesterday was a real nail biter. You know, we were worried because what if Romney got elected, then it's, you know, potentially 4 more years of waiting, which we can't afford at this point. Anyway, I'm waiting. I think that the big hope that I've got right now is that in the aftermath of Sandy, there's this sort of political will to deal with our fossil fuel problem and climate change, and start to really make some aggressive moves here in the U.S. that could be used as leverage to change a few other countries that need to shift. So.
Let me just tell you about the situation, because we have about, I think about 100, I don't know, 80 people, something like that, sitting here, and they are all, and they are writing down questions. So we get questions all the time, and we have all these little notes, and we're going to ask you those later on if we still have time, but we try to kind of put them all in here.
Right, hang on just 1 second. Can I cable from you over there? Oh wait, maybe it's here. No. If I can take your internet cable, I might speed up the... Yeah, that one. Sorry.
There he goes. Okay, you can later.
See this?
Ah, there you are. What was that?
It might help. I'm up.
But you're still there.
There's a bit of a delay. I can see a serious delay. So maybe that'll help it. Okay.
We can still hear you, we can still see you. No, we can't hear you. No. Hello? Mike?
You can't see me?
Yeah, we can see you. Now we can hear you again. No, say something.
Right. I'm saying something now.
Here we go. It's a bit late. It's a delay. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe to start off, because we just showed the audience some of your films from YouTube, and we talked about, well, I talked about your projects for some time, so they know most of the older, or some of the older projects, but maybe you can tell us about your current project and what you're working on at the moment, because that's your new film, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a new film, and it's called The Yes Men Are Revolting.
But you don't have it yet.
It's the best name that we've had for the film. Yeah, that's, it has two meanings, right? It's like we're having a revolution, we're rising up, but we're also... So, it's a new film that's composed of actions that we've done over the past 4 years. Can you hear me?
Yes, but
only half of the sentences. Say something.
That's not good. Yeah. Let me try something a second. And I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi.
Okay. Oh God.
Wir haben das Fehlen ausgemacht, dann muss ich das mal stecken. Gerade hier. Wessen Bart ist das denn?
Stefan.
So, geiles Bild.
Ja.
Die ist jetzt gar nicht mehr da.
Die ist abgehauen.
Ist weggegangen.
Hello?
Here we are.
Is that... You can't hear me still.
Oh, maybe we have to switch off the video. I'm not sure. Maybe that helps.
We could try. We could try.
You switch off our video first.
It doesn't work.
Nice. I like the image there. Yeah, I'll just imagine them talking to this mouth.
Yes. Okay. We can see you, but you can't see us.
Oh, it's very disconcerting. So you can see me eat if I eat, right?
That's okay. Everybody's hungry.
Sorry, I'd offered some, but...
Actually, you should turn the camera. Okay, too late.
So the project
Okay,
we're working on
yeah,
is
your
called...
film, which isn't made yet, but you're working on, yeah.
Yeah, working on it. We're running a crowdfunding campaign right now on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And we're trying to raise enough money to make another film that's called The Yes Men Are... And it's really about... it's mainly about how fucked democracies have become by money, and about the impending doom that we could suffer with climate change, and how to get over that problem, how to address it by kind of reimagining democracy and claiming it back and making it work for our future instead of work for the short-term interests of a few big fossil fuel companies.
Okay. The next question we would like to ask is, do you consider yourself more as artists or more as political activists?
Well, I like to figure out who's asking before answering.
The audience is
It helps to... Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I would say that, you know, if we're in a crowd of political activists, we can be political activists, but if we're in a group of artists and it helps to identify with them in some way, or they would like to see us as artists, then that's okay too. As far as where we stand, we're just trying to make as much of a difference in the world as possible. And so that's whatever that is, it's whatever you want to call it. But you know, what we do is driven. The motivation is to create a kind of progressive change to help influence a movement that is trying to call for things like social and environmental justice.
Okay, so if you regard yourself as political activist, then is there any great plan or strategy, or how do you choose your projects?
Well, what we do right now is we work almost exclusively with organizations that have campaigns that are running and that need a publicity boost at a certain moment. Because what we do are essentially publicity stunts. They're an excuse for journalists to write about something. We're kind of like storytellers that fill in the gaps if they don't have a reason to write otherwise, or a reason that is accepted by the profit motive-driven media. So really, that means that we have to plug into campaigns where they're already doing the work of either gathering people for a movement or putting pressure on government or pressure on, trying to change specific laws, that kind of thing. And so we collaborate with organizations. This year we worked with Greenpeace on their Save the Arctic campaign. We worked with a local organization here who's doing an anti-police violence campaign. And we have dozens of projects now in works with different groups that will serve their campaign needs in really specific ways.
Maybe this explains, this is Sarah again, maybe this explains the next question, because we just got the question how you finance your projects, and so that would be cooperation, and also that Kickstarter project where you were doing crowdfunding on the internet.
Sometimes if it's a big organization and they have money, they put up the money to do the project. Sometimes we also raise some money from foundations and independent donors. But, it's actually, we got a lot of arts funding in the beginning when we first started working. Then we kind of exhausted those resources in terms of most of the grants here in the U.S. are sort of one-time things. You can get them once in your life and that's it. And if you're working with, if you're working on your own and you get something like a $35,000 food and foundation fellowship, it seems really quite good. But if you're working with, 4 or 5 people, employees who you have to pay, it's suddenly a very small amount of money. So we're at that stage now where we have to bring in quite a bit to actually get these things done. And for a thing like a movie, especially where we have hundreds and hundreds and, almost 1,000 hours of footage, it's a lot of work to get through it, cut it. So that's why we have this Kickstarter campaign, is raising a small amount of the money that we need to finish it. There's all kinds of other expenses, legal fees and that sort of thing, but yeah, if you look for Politisch on Kickstarter and are revolting, you'll find our campaign. There's a bunch of video content there that you might be interested in checking out too. It's like we've been releasing little video nuggets, both for the people who supported the campaign and just to the world, but through that Kickstarter interview.
We'll hand the link over to the audience. You probably also have, people seem to be really interested in money questions. They ask about lawsuits that you might have to pay for, and another question is, how do you earn your living? So maybe it's a German, I don't know, but get all these money questions.
I think if there's people in the audience who are, working in the field, then it's a natural question. It's sort of pragmatic, right? The way we earn our living is by teaching at universities. Even though we have people who work for us now or with us, and we pay them, our organization pays them, we haven't found a way to replace our actual salaries from our day jobs as university professors, so we keep those jobs and, we end up working 2 jobs. So there's that. And then, wait, what was the other part of the question?
Lawsuits? Pay the lawyers?
Right.
Or do you have, are there any
Yeah, we've got one lawsuit against us from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is like a huge lobbying organization. It's independent of the government, even though they're called the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Attack the U.S. government for environmental regulations or workers' rights. Their whole idea is to undermine all that shit. So they sued us after we impersonated them and announced that they were changing their position on climate change, and we're going to come out in support of legislation that was in Congress to limit emissions. And so, yeah, they sued us, and it's a totally hilarious lawsuit. It's really just kind of a joke. And it's sitting on a judge's desk. It's been there for 3 years now. We've been waiting for it to move forward, and it hasn't, and we've been really disappointed because we've been hoping that, for years we wanted people to sue us and nobody would do it, nobody would get what do you call it? They have brands that they want to protect, right? And so the risks of suing people like us is quite extreme for them compared to just letting it go. If they let it go, it's a momentary news flash. If they sue us, we could hold them accountable in the court of public opinion. Even if they win that lawsuit, it'd be, years. But if you're thinking about donating to our Kickstarter campaign, forget about it, because that's going to an entirely different company. It's untouchable. That money will still be used to build, to make that movie and build this action switchboard, which is the really exciting part of that movie, is that we're not only doing a movie, we're also using the movie this time to convert the audience and other people to action by building this digital kind of action platform.
That's the Yes Lab, isn't it? Or is it connected to the Yes Lab?
Connected to the Yes Lab, yeah. So the idea is we already have a database of about 100,000 people who have volunteered to do things, to get active and work on things. And so we're creating a kind of a way for that to get quite sophisticated about connect people with specific skills, and there'll be human operators usually encourage and hook people up. So it's not this kind of like piece of software.
And that will be worldwide.
It's worldwide, and then we won't be launching it for a while. We're working with our current database. Like if you go to the yesman.org/join and sign up, it asks you where you live, that kind of thing. And so we do projects right now where we work with the existing database, but it's not sophisticated enough to really track people without a whole lot of effort. To connect people. So this is a way to kind of like semi-automated, but to keep human operators in there, encouraging things to happen.
Okay, thank you. So there are lots of other questions concerning the point of sustainability. So do you know what's happening to older projects, or how effective do you think your actions are?
Well, we don't have any way of knowing for sure if our actions, when I say for sure, there's no science that we can do. We could, if we had a ton of money, we could do polling, kind of awareness people had of the actions we've done, whether it had changed their minds in some way, but that's expensive. What we do have is a lot of anecdotal information, which comes from things like the individual emails that come in, and we get at least one a day from somebody who says that, I saw your movie and it changed something about the way that I exist in the world, or about what I'm doing. And we got one 2 days ago that just blew my mind. It was from a 17-year-old girl who basically said, I'm just graduating from high school, I'm about to go into college, and I watched your movie and I realized that the entire world had been built up around me by my community, by my parents, by everything, was a complete fabrication. It was totally a fiction. And now, and it's this incredible email where it was like, holy shit, this really made a difference. For her, and she was ready to go out, and she just was basically saying, tell me what to do now. And so there are a lot of people like that who write into us and say, I saw this, and I want to do something. And that's what's important to us, and we actually saw that as well, just anecdotally in places like Occupy Wall Street. You know, when we first were showing to help, to try to participate in Occupy Wall Street, the original people who started it were, I mean, whatever, there were a few hundred of them really, but they were coming up to us and saying, thank you, you know, we're doing this because, you know, you and these other people who we saw doing these things that gave us the courage to do this, or and so we're kind of thinking, it was a big moment for us because you always wonder if it's working or not, and there it was clear that we had been doing something right, although we were always feeling inadequate too because the world is so fucked, right? So that's why right now we're trying to take this next step, and we realized that with the last film that it was really working on that level. Like there were people who were seeing it, and it was effective in terms of getting people to think about these issues, or sometimes encouraging people to act. But we didn't want to repeat that thing, because what we found was that we had a lot of audiences that were really willing to get out there and do something, but we didn't have a way to convert that sentiment to action really easily, or to participate in that. So that's what we're trying to fix for the next film.
Okay. Do you in any way, there are quite a lot of students here from university, from the Dresden University. Do you in any way connect what you do as a yes man with what you teach at university? Or is that just a job to earn money and you teach whatever and do something else? And
very much doing with the yes men to our teaching life. And more so as the state of the world has gotten worse and worse. I think that when I started teaching about 15 years ago, I kind of thought, well, I'll teach these useful skills and this interesting history, but it doesn't have to relate exactly to what I'm doing. But in the last 5 years or so, it's become clear that there's no sense in wasting time on something that's not part of an overall program to prepare for the future. You know, because I think that the version of preparation for the future in the late 90s was like learning how to do web programming and video editing and all these things, and at least in terms of culture and the arts and media, it's like learning these skills, writing, you know, and media skills that would then get you a job. That's not really important today. I mean, a job may be useful, but the important thing is to fucking change the system to actually become a movement that succeeds in creating a sustainable economy. And I don't mean as sustainable as in economically sustainable. I mean environmentally sustainable future.
Okay. Okay, there are other questions because we saw some films, and so the audience is asking, how do you deal with the fact that your audience in some conferences shows no reactions, and how do you keep your motivation up?
Well, the actions are not really for those audiences, and sometimes it's very, very funny to watch audiences not reacting. And keep in mind, if you're doing something like this yourself, it is just as important to have a video camera on the audience and on their reactions as it is on the action, right? Because what's fun is, as a third-party viewer, is watching this thing unfold and then watching the, you know, lack of reactions, which can be a very, very funny kind of comedic tension. And so that kind of thing we come to expect now in those conference environments. It surprised us the first time, and then it kept surprising us for the next 3 or 4 times because we kept trying to make things more outrageous and more bizarre. You know, I think in our first film, The Yes Men, we did a thing in Tampere, Finland, where we
saw that one just now. Well,
so that thing, the inflatable golden phallus, I mean, once we'd done that and realized that people basically weren't going to react much in the way that one might expect. That they were just going to be polite, and then we realized that we would really be able to use that kind of sentiment to good comic effect. So that's, but really it's not about those people. We're not trying to change those people's minds. It might have that effect, but what we're trying to do is tell a story that goes out in the wider world. So the whole thing with that big golden phallus was that we then sent out pictures and video and a story to the news media, and the news media picked it up. So that was covered worldwide, both as a news event momentarily for about 2 or 3 days. It was in the news around the world, and then we incorporated it into the movie, and the movie has an even more profound effect, I think, than the momentary news media spectacle, because the news media spectacle, the cycle is very short and it goes away, whereas the movie, somehow the way people experience it and share it changes things a lot, and it sticks with people.
Okay.
So those are our different audiences. Our primary audience is the people watching, secondary audience is the news media, and the tertiary audience is the people who watch the films or read the book or whatever books that we've got out. But the most important audience is not that primary first audience.
Okay.
It's the opposite.
And this leads me to another point, because so you're getting more and more popular, and is popularity a problem now?
I don't think so. I mean, it's maybe it feels like more pressure, but it's not a problem, because the whole idea, the reason we use humor in the first place is to try to make these kinds of irreverent actions that kind of are attacking the violent system that we've got, a system of government, system of oppression that's native really to the way capitalism has grown. And the reason that we are attacking that with humor is that it spreads that way. People like to share it. And so the goal is, in fact, to get a lot of people watching this stuff, but then convert those eyeballs, participate in the movement. We don't want people to just be passive, whereas the idea is to activate and mobilize.
Okay, another question from the audience concerning your past projects, and the question is there a past project that's really important to you but that didn't get the public response you hoped for?
Well, there's always projects that kind of don't make a big splash. They get cut off or something in midstream. I mean, we had a thing a very funny project that we were doing with this anti-police violence group that was trying to address a problem in New York City that's called the Stop and Frisk program, where the police racially profile people and stop and frisk them for guns. So they basically choose mostly black and Hispanic men between the ages of 15 and 30, and they just randomly select them and frisk them. So it's kind of humiliating and strange, and they do it in the poor neighborhoods, and it's proven to not really get any significant amount of weapons off the street, which is their excuse for it. So we were working with that group, and we came up with they had some really funny ideas, and it was a really funny video. You can see it on the Yes Lab on our website. But they made a really funny video that showed an alliance between McDonald's restaurants and police, where the police were issuing coupons to get a free Happy Meal if you got stopped and frisked 3 times. So you could that project only lasted about 6 hours because we locked it. We made some mistakes about the way domain was registered and stuff, and so the NYPD was able to seize the domain back very quickly, and we didn't have enough kind of backplays to protect against it. But in the meantime, there was some, local news and stuff that covered it. So success was nowhere near as successful as it would have been if it could have stayed up.
Okay, so we have lots and lots of questions. dealing with the question, how do you survive this? So what are the, did you ever experience physical harm, and what were the worst consequences for you so far?
I haven't really experienced physical harm. I mean, we put ourselves at a little bit of risk doing things like rolling down the stairs of the U.S. Capitol in a survival ball. I mean, things like that, you could get hurt. But when you actually are going into these conference environments, there's almost, I think there's probably zero risk of being injured. It's certainly less risky than, let's say, going out and riding a bike down the street in New York, or Hamburg or Berlin or wherever, really. Anywhere that you're riding a bike, it's more dangerous than going into a conference where people, especially in a business conference, people think you're very important because they're actually looking out for you there. So no matter what you do in that context, you can't really convince them that you're not that person. We found it's really hard. Your worst enemy is yourself, because you become very paranoid, and you read and hurt yourself.
The sound was kind of. Are you still there? Yeah.
We did once get ourselves into quite worked up really bad emotionally when we went to a conference called the International Web Police Conference on Child Safety on the Internet, and we were there representing the Bush administration, the time, and weird internet police people did kind of, we pushed it a little too far, and it was really strange, our presentation. And some people who had attended the conference sort of figured it out and told our internet police hosts, who were really a strange cult actually, and they started to chase us around, and grab at us. And they were yelling that they were going to call the Secret Service and call the FBI. And we drove off in like a real paranoid state. We weren't hurt or anything, even though they'd been clawing at us with their weird little finger. They weren't the police, just pretending to be police. And it turned out they did call the Secret Service and the FBI, who then in turn called the Florida State Police, who actually exist, not real police, you call yourself the international weapons. So, but in the meantime, we were paranoid and we ran away and we were freaking out, trying to figure out if we could change our plane tickets because they were but just in our heads, because it turned out that the police didn't give a shit about what we were doing. They really cared about we're impersonating police.
Okay, Mike. Before we have two last questions for you, and then you can have your cold lunch. From the audience, and I think I like these questions. One of them is: was there a starting point in your life in which you decided to do what you do today? If yes, what was it?
There was the starting points are all kind of accidental. When I was in college, I did some projects that ended up getting a lot of local news attention, and they were done out of a sense of like some kind of injustice and some kind of storytelling impulse, but ended up working so successfully. Basically, I felt empowered by having a voice, by being able to leverage this sort of press coverage to speak, that I got obsessed with and started doing it. And I think Andy happened upon it in part accidentally as well, because basically he was working for a video game company, and he inserted kind of gay content into a game called Simcopter that he was working on. And so when we did that, I think it was picked up as an activist project, and he also saw then that it was like quite powerful to work in that mode, because you could suddenly have the kind of speak at the volume that's normally reserved only for people with either a lot of money or a lot of power, or people who are in very dire straits. The other allowed to speak, in the press right now. So yeah, it's where the impulse originally comes from. I think it's maybe just a basic sense of injustice, and I don't know how far back you can take it. I grew up in the suburbs, and it was pretty mind-numbing way. Like there was nothing there but like McDonald's and chain stores and the mall, and so I think that it's rebelling against that uniformity and recognizing that there's a corruption that may be convenient for a life in late capitalism, but it doesn't give much pleasure. So I think it's something that becomes very easy for reproducing more people and having family and moving them around in cars, and it's a lot easier than dealing with a lot easier than dealing with really sort of rough cities with no service. Have a lot of over here, but that's shifting. A lot of people are recognizing that living is not a future that's going to maintain us.
Okay. And final question from the audience: what would you use, or what would you do with $1 million? $1 million. Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah.
What we do is we make our movie.
Yeah, of course. A few more. No.
Thing is,
Sorry.
we're raising.
Hold on. You're done.
Am I gone? Hello.
There you are. No, you're fine.
See, the crazy thing is that we actually need that much money. It's kind of weird because we're asking for $100,000 on Kickstarter, but that's just this overall budget.
Okay.
Because one thing for the action switch, we need to pay people to run it.
Yeah.
About $1,000 here. We've got.
We're doing lip reading, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I got the last bit about the action switch, but that was about it.
We need $1 million.
Yes.
Yay, yeah, we do.
They told me to stop talking, so I'm waiting for you to say something. No, I think we got. See, the problem is we can see you, but you can't see us. So now I'm waiting. Yeah, that's very good. Now we got a picture again. Yeah. So maybe we can. Yeah, we should actually turn it around because then you can see the audience. Can we just take that off? Yeah. Whoa, lots of people. Yeah. People waving.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, Mike. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks for talking. That was good. I look forward to meeting some of you in person somewhere in the future.
Yeah. Come on over. And of course, we tell everybody to give money to your project and to see the film and see and buy all the other films and go to New York and help on the action switch and do
the Yes Lab.
Yes, work on the Yes Lab. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also, for the other films, you can find them on file sharing and stuff like that. You'll find them. They're out there.
Yeah.
Some kind of.
Where were you doing?
Sorry. He's releasing the film via digital download and something else. So for the last film that we.
Yeah.
So but the thing is, like, the most important thing is to do whatever it is that you're good at or feel compelled to do in the service of this movement that's going to change, that's going to make the change possible that we need to see. Because otherwise, we're fucked. And you're pretty young and stuff, so I'm going to be dead, but you guys are going to have to deal with this shit that you're going to inherit. I mean, I know there might be some of you out there who are like over 30, but most of you look like pretty young, unless you're very well presented. I just think that like, this is the time. It's like, this is the time gotta happen. And yeah, thanks. It's good to talk to you.
All
See
right,
you.
thank you.
Okay, vielen Dank. Gibt es noch Fragen, die Sie vielleicht nicht losgeworden sind und die Sie Sarah Burkhardt fragen wollen? Das ist mir jetzt gerade so eingefallen.
Ja.
Warum so streng, also zumindest eine Überschrift zwischen künstlerischem Handeln und politischem Handeln gesetzt wird? Also künstlerischer Spaß oder politisches Handeln, das ist
Die Überschrift, muss ich sagen, stammt nicht von mir. Also muss ich erstmal als erstes sagen. Und hat was mit der Veranstaltung zu tun, wo es darum ging, eben, also so wie ich es verstanden habe, jetzt jemanden auch nochmal aus einem anderen Bereich reinzubringen, der eben nicht explizit jetzt politisch handeln natürlich schon, aber eben nicht aus dem politischen Bereich oder aus der Politikdidaktik oder aus der Politikwissenschaft kommt, sondern eben aus der Kunst bzw. der Vermittlung von Kunst. Und da stimmt es natürlich dann wieder doch, weil es ist ja, also es gibt einfach diese Verknüpfung. Die benutzen ja durchaus künstlerische Strategien, um damit dann wiederum politisch zu handeln. Gleichzeitig ist es dieser Spaßfaktor, der da auch mit reinkommt. Also sind es dann in der Überschrift eigentlich, beschreibt die schon den Bereich.
Also ich glaube, ich muss einen Teil von der Frage beantworten, weil die Frage, ob man so humorvoll, auch so unernst mit so ernsthaften Fragen wie dem Bhopal-Unglück umgeht im Kontext von politischer Kommunikation, stellt sich quasi aus der Perspektive der Leute, die sich politisch engagieren, durchaus. Also wie ernst müssen wir sowas nehmen, wenn jemand quasi so Fakes einfach mal kurz produziert und dann verschwindet er auch wieder. Ich glaube, aus der Perspektive der Kunstpädagogik stellt sich die Frage in der Schärfe auch gar nicht, wenn Sarah und ich schon manchmal über die Yes-Men geredet haben und wir finden die eigentlich beide ziemlich interessant. Dann sind wir aber immer früher oder später zu der Frage gekommen, also ist das jetzt nur Kunst, in Anführungszeichen, oder ist das ernsthafte politische Aktion, die wir da machen?
die Inhaltsstelle für die Person, dass du wirklich sagen musst, das ist Kunst und das ist Politik, oder die Frage ist irgendwie auch
Und da kommt man eben hin, wenn man darüber spricht. Also da merkt man irgendwann, da ziehen diese Kategorien dann auch nicht mehr. Also weil das sind 70 und das ist dann irgendwann auch egal. Also hier ist es dann egal, ob man es Kunst nennt oder ob man es Politik nennt oder ob man es Aktionismus nennt. Ja.
Ja, das ist halt dann wiederum für mich, also da habe ich mir
Das ist aber ja, wobei es ja ein Unterschied ist, das in künstlerischen Kontext zu stellen oder es als Kunst hinzustellen. Also nur weil es auf der Dokumenta ist, wird es dann gleich zur Kunst erklärt, weil es in dem Kunstkontext auftaucht. Also,
ja, fände ich es auf jeden Fall schwierig.
Ja.
Gut, wir wollen es aber auch gar nicht unnötig in die Länge ziehen. Wir haben jetzt lange schon hier gesessen und bedanken uns für Ihr Interesse und Ihre Aufmerksamkeit und noch einen schönen Abend.